Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This one is for you, Max. Ever seen any of those adverts on television, or perhaps in a film, where the protagonist, with his chiseled jaw and 3-day stubble, hefts his mighty hatchet by grasping it just below the head and goes out to chop some firewood, and miraculously, with one tap, he can split a log, perhaps 3 logs or even 5. Now, it's important to dress properly for this. You have to have the ubiquitous lumberjack shirt, your blue jeans, your Timberlands or your Red Wings, and of course a minuscule hatchet which you hold incorrectly. Today, thankfully, my boys went out this morning with the village tractor and brought back 4 or 5 cubic meters of logs, which we sorely need. While this may look Hollywood, this is next to useless when it comes to logs like that, which are almost my size and almost my weight. Stay tuned and I'll show you how to split wood properly. Right, that's a bit better. You're gonna have to excuse the noise today. It's Saturday morning in a village and everybody is dealing with wood. Let's talk about what you should wear first when chopping huge quantities of wood. Firstly, get yourself a pair of steel toe cap boots. These are an old pair of JCBs I've had for many years. Always wear steel toe cap when using an axe or a chainsaw. The number of times you will slip, and that can end the party immediately. If you're using a chainsaw, even consider buying chainsaw graded boots. Quite often an axe will slip, or because of an overswing. Be aware that a steel toe cap will only protect your toes. Quite often the axe will come towards your shin. Get ready to jump out the way. If you're not used to using an axe, wear gloves, because your hands will blister. Mine will today, but I'm used to it. If you use your hands for more delicate activities and don't like seeing huge gaping welts on them, wear gloves. Right, now let's talk about the axe itself. Any of you who saw my old video about which axes to choose will know I basically use a splitting axe for everything, including hatchet work. There are very few things I would actually use a hatchet for. There is a world of difference between a hatchet with a very thin blade profile, maybe for carving, some sapling chopping perhaps, and a splitting axe. This one weighs 1 kilo. it's heavy. The blade profile on a splitting axe generally has wedges coming off, which is what forces the wood to split. Now, using a splitting axe is different to when you're chopping to cut something down, because the aim is to force a strike into the wood, and the momentum is what splits it. An axe is not a sword. In a sword, you have to follow through to get through the other side. But with an axe, you don't want to follow through. You basically want to do the minimum amount of entry and then let physics do the work for you. Splitting axes have the advantage over flat-bladed axes in that they don't tend to get buried so often in the wood. If you chop using a flat-bladed axe, safety first, poodle. If you chop with a flat-bladed axe, quite often it will get buried inside the log, and you will spend more time retrieving the blade or extracting the blade than actually using it for what it's designed for. Because a splitting axe has wedges, it generally creates space behind it where it can be removed. Now, I know many of you prefer the traditional sort of logging style axes, but it depends on what you're using an axe for. If you're going to be building a cabin, then a felling axe is probably your best bet, because your primary function is to cut down trees, and for that you're going in at a slope, at an angle, and you need as much entry as possible. My primary use for an axe is turning huge piles of logs into burnable sizes that will fit inside my various fireplaces. So this isn't a universal suggestion, but if you're looking at becoming off-grid and you're looking at moving away from electricity or gas or coal as a heat source, and you want to get into wood, that is your friend. So let's have a look at how to swing a splitting axe in the most effective way. As you can see, 6 months of burning wood, literally 24 hours a day, has left us sorely depleted. And this load we've just got in this morning, hopefully will be the first of 4 loads before summer, and then a few more loads in autumn. However, at the moment, the wood call is insane here. Villagers are literally stockpiling wood wherever they can. They're ordering massive amounts and stockpiling, because they know that this winter, with the energy crisis and price hikes, wood is going to be a very valuable we are competing now with everybody in the entire region for wood, and I've seen some incredibly large wood piles being stacked, running the whole length of gardens, around houses. I've even seen people now ordering trees. They're not even bothering having it cut to a metre or 3 foot long lengths. They're just ordering trees and having 5-6 trees dropped in their garden. But these people are really making sure that for this winter and maybe the following, they are sorted. Right then, let's talk about the swing. Like I said earlier, there is a big difference between using an axe to cut something down, like a tree, and to split logs. Today, stop! Today we're just going to be focusing on splitting logs and how to do it effectively. First of all, how you hold it. Now, on adverts and on films, everyone holds an axe right up near the head. This is useless. An axe needs the whole length of its shaft, or its haft, to gain momentum, to force the head, sharpened, to go through the piece of wood. So, we're going to hold it fairly low down. As you can see, you try to control the end of the movement so it doesn't go all the way into the chopping block, or worse still, carries on and goes into your foot or your leg. When you use wood a lot, you learn to recognize just how much force you need to get through each individual piece. Sometimes a log can be very knotted. By that I mean it can look something like this. This is a mess. Trying to work out where to hit this piece of wood to split it will be a bit of a task. As you can see from the outside, there is evidence of where the knots are. Oh. When you have a nice clean piece of wood, you can basically split it into quarters or eighths fairly evenly. When you have a large knotted piece, the object is just to get it into smaller burnable pieces. Don't worry about how it looks. It may take multiple hits, test hits from different angles to work out where the grain will allow the axe to pass through. If you hit where the knot is tightest, it's like hitting concrete. The axe will just rebound. For this, I'm going to try just breaking it down a little bit. As you can see, the axe barely penetrated. So what we do is we just move the wood, we rotate it, and try to find a better entry point. Sometimes you can do this 20 times on one piece of wood. Okay, I've managed to cause a split Now I have two options here. I can batten down the axe into the split and split the wood with a piece of wood. I could use a metal wedge and hammer the wedge in, a log splitter, or I can try and hit again in exactly the same place and this time push through. Who's your daddy? As you can see, with a knotted piece of wood, it's not going to go completely smoothly. It will break how it wants to break at very strange angles. Always be careful when splitting knotted wood that it doesn't rebound into your head, the axe, or into your leg. Sometimes you'll get smaller pieces. Don't even bother trying to chop them. There's not much point. By the time you split that into 4 or even half, there's virtually no wood content left. You're better off just drying them as they are and putting them in the fire. Unless, of course, you're after kindling. But kindling is another story. Well, hopefully I should explain a bit on how to use a splitting axe. One last thing I would like to cover. As you can see, this is wrapped in duct tape. The reason being, you will miss with an axe, and eventually even a good hickory handle will start splitting. I generally just keep covering it in duct tape. Locals here, I have seen, will weld a piece of metal at the front top of the shaft and around. It massively increases the weight, which also helps with the fulcrum of the splitting, but it protects the shaft, the haft, from being turned into sawdust. You will miss. Please leave your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, and as always, be free.